Hey guys, let's take a minute today to talk about how Maximo really helps your inventory management, your spares management process, and helps improve your overall operation. We see in a lot of our large customers that they either outsource their storeroom management or it's capitalized, and so everything's paid for the moment it shows up, and these both tend to result in poor inventory management practices. And the reason is because no one's driving very granular tracking because it's paid for. It's kind of a hidden cost to an extent. But if we step back and we take a look at how Maximo can help us and then what the benefits are, I believe we'll see a strong business case as to why, even if it is capitalized or even if we are having a third party manage it, we really need to get in. We need to get the processes and practices set up. We need to get the configuration done in the system to track things in detail. So we're going to talk about 4 key areas today that really help drive value. So within inventory management, the first one would be, when we receive a new asset, loading that bill of materials and then associating the parts. That's huge. Now, the reason that's important is because we have a storeroom with a whole bunch of stuff in it, and then we have a whole bunch of assets that are deployed. And for the average enterprise, they really can't tell you if the parts on hand match up with the assets in service. What do we often find? We often find, now of course depending on age, but most of our customers are in the average of probably 15 years of using Maximo at this point. Some of them are going back close to 30 years, okay? And in that time period, there have been asset classes in the entirety retired that are no longer used, and they still have spares for those in the storeroom. So if we don't have good tracking of those parts, that bill of material and quantity used on a given asset, and then associated with the part number in the storeroom, we're probably carrying excess inventory that is obsolete for our factory, for our purposes, and we can either sell that on the out there third-party marketplace, or simply dispose of it and get it off of our books. Now, sometimes people look at that and they're like, I paid X for this, and if I get rid of that, then, hey, I'm losing money. You know what? We forget that it costs us somewhere around 20% of the value of our inventory to house it, count it, manage it every year. So that means if a part sits on the shelf for 5 years, you've paid for it twice. So that's stuff that's obsolete. Get rid of it. Find a way to offload it. Hopefully you can recover some of your investment in it, but it's costing you money every year. So you want to get rid of that. The second way then would be when we look at the function within the work management side and we're executing a work order. And if I use a part on that work order, it gives me the ability to now associate that as a spare part against the asset that was recorded on the work order. So historically speaking, even if I don't have that bill of materials and the spares recorded against my assets, I can turn that feature on in Maximo. And when I have parts issued against a work order, those can then become spares against that asset. So that's a hugely powerful feature that allows us to come into enterprises who, again, have been using Maximo for 15 years and not been doing this, and actually rapidly catch up just by doing that auto association. So that's a pretty cool feature, and for those that have been using it a long time, they probably don't even realize it's there. So that would be our number 2 in how does Maximo help us better manage our inventory. Then the third, what I would say, is the cycle count functionality within Maximo. The cycle count is pretty flexible. It'll let you do blind counts, planned counts, random counts, and there's also configuration capabilities in there so you can further extend the randomization and such of that. And that's really powerful. Of course, I'll say as a practice, we never recommend anything other than a blind count, meaning the mobile device or the sheet you get to do the count is not going to tell you what it thinks is on the shelf. It's going to force you to count it. And that's just a good practice to prevent anyone from taking a shortcut, let's say. Right? So we want to get real counts. But by doing that, then we get a real sense of what we really have. And then we can also start to identify things that didn't show up on the count. Well, hey, did every bin, every row get counted? No. Why not? Well, hey, we have some stuff in the storeroom that's not even in the system. So that helps us get control over our inventory. So cycle count is a big one. And the final one would be some of the data that is specific to the inventory record and then on the purchasing side. So we have min-max, the min-max values that Maximo supports in terms of what's the minimum on hand and maximum on hand we should have. And of course, those values are going to be calculated based upon the assets we have in use and the total number of this part that is used within the plant. And then what do our maintenance procedures look like, and our preventive maintenance and our overhaul? So what's likely based upon our typical lead time, the minimum we should have on hand and the maximum we would ever need on hand. And so those values help control how much we have so that we're not making emergency runs or paying for emergency shipping, and at the same time we're not double and triple stocked on things. And then the other side of that is the economic order quantity, because we're going to need to order these things, and based upon a vendor's lead time and the pricing discounts we get them, we're going to set that economic order quantity for that item. And that's not only saving us money, but it's also ensuring that we're constantly in compliance with our min-max thresholds we've set. So, just a handful of control mechanisms there in Maximo that really help us manage our inventory, and that's managing it from a internal storeroom management perspective, managing it from a reordering perspective, and management in terms of what do we need to keep up with our assets that are in operation perspective. So, love to hear your thoughts and comments on that. Comments below. Look forward to talking to you.